So we've talked about interest rates and how that has had effects on both buyers and sellers. And we've also talked about housing inventory and the shortage and how that's affecting the market. But on this month's market update, I want to talk about affordability and give you guys some perspective on that. So let's get into it. Real estate success without the BS. I believe that the highest and best use for any real estate agent is to give perspective. And affordability has been the buzzword lately. And for good reason, right? The market has created an environment that makes it difficult for many Americans and especially New Yorkers to realize the dream of home ownership. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or a home owner, from making that move that normally you would seriously consider. So I want to give you guys a different perspective on where we're at currently. And hopefully that'll help you make the best decision for yourself and your family. Now, this is a tough one to squeeze into a relatively short video, so bear with me as I try and condense things. But to put it plainly, there are only two types of housing, right? You've got renters and you've got owners. And both have their pros and cons. And one may be better for any person at any given time, given their personal situations and their personal goals. So to give you some perspective on cost, I have to talk about the numbers behind the two options, right? There are currently only 4 major US cities where it is cheaper to buy than it is to rent: Detroit, Philadelphia, Cleveland, and Houston, Texas. That's it. And for the most part, that's because those areas have seen a lack of jobs, as there are other reasons. But people want to work and live in places that they feel safe, decent quality of life, and essentially it is a place where they can lay down roots, right? But nationwide, so everywhere else, including our area, if you have a 20% down payment, the typical single-family home, condo, or co-op costs about 25% more on a monthly basis to buy as opposed to rent. So if you were looking at a 3-bed, 2-bath home in, let's say, Massapequa, and for rent it would cost you $4,000, it'll cost you about $5,000 for a mortgage on that house. And I hate painting in broad strokes because real estate is very case by case and every home is different, right? Every buyer situation is different. Every seller situation is different. So obviously there are a lot of determining factors that go into the mortgage payment. That includes down payment, taxes, flood insurance, etc. And there are a lot of things that go into the price of a home, right? Condition, location, legal status, the list goes on. But the general rule of thumb is it will cost you 25% more monthly to own as opposed to renting for something similar, right? So when we talk about affordability, if we have the basics down, that you have a 20% down payment in today's market, and that gets you 25% more monthly as opposed to renting a similar space, we can have a pretty easy conversation with ourselves, right? And ask, does that make sense for me, given what my current financial situation is? But also, more importantly, what sort of a time frame am I looking at for how long I want to live in wherever it is that I want to move next, right? Because here's the more interesting thing, and I'd like you to reference the graph that I've attached below below this video in my email. If you look at the year-over-year costs for renting versus ownership, initially renting is the cheaper option, but there comes a point where that flips, and it's right around year 5. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that when you buy with a fixed rate mortgage, you lock in your living expense. Whereas with renting, well, how often have you seen rents go down, right? So whatever your situation, whether you're, renting now and looking to buy, or you own now, but you're thinking about downsizing or moving, what you should be asking yourself is, how long do I plan on living in this new space, right? Buying real estate is a long-term play and should always be viewed as such. If you're thinking of buying a house and hoping that in 5 years it'll be worth more, you're risking a lot of money on a hope. And so there are many times that I have to advise people to rent as opposed to purchasing, right? But everyone's goals are different. So every situation is different. And my advice changes from person to person. And I hope that makes sense, right? Now, for most people, getting that initial 20% down payment so that they can keep their monthly number affordable is the issue, especially when home prices are at all-time highs in our area. But I don't think that should stop anyone from putting a plan in place to get you where you want to go. But you also need clarity on what it is you want. And that's part of what I do. And I'm happy to chat with you about your options and what you need to do to set yourself up for success in real estate. Okay? Well, that's it for me, guys. I'm looking forward to seeing you in 2 weeks for my featured listings email. As always, I'm here if you need anything. You have any questions, you want to talk about your current situation, what makes sense for you, that's what I'm here for. So, love you guys. I'll talk to you soon.